Hello, my fellow wealth hackers. Welcome to another episode of the Truth About Real Estate Investing show for Canadians. My name is Erwin Cito. I'm your host, your producer, all those things. This past weekend, we continued our tradition of taking the kids to apple and pear picking. Don't expect to save any money by picking your own fruit. The price is actually like 3 times what the price at Costco for the same apples, I think. My wife Cherry says that we are paying for the experience of picking our own apples, which is absolutely true. A staff at the farm let us know that the sweeter apples, they were already pre-picked and available for purchase. But again, they're already picked. So no thank you. We will pick our own, less sweet, more tart apples ourselves. In true hacker fashion, my objective was for the biggest, ripest fruit, and it all costs the same, right? So I might as well get the best ones. And at a busy orchard, the low-hanging fruit does not meet that criteria. Those who put in the extra 10% will get the best fruit. So what do? We walk the 300 meters to the towing my kids and our wagon, our collapsible wagon. We walk to the end of the row as far as possible from the car parking lot, and we start picking from there. I also put my kids on my shoulders so they could reach for the higher branches, and that's where the better fruit were. We even brought my son's toy robotic arm, so that he could reach even higher. The kids loved it. We were able to pick the biggest, most red apples using this strategy. My kids still pick some from low-hanging fruit because they don't always listen to my instructions. But when I compared what they picked versus what we were getting from the top of the tree, they didn't want the little ones anymore. They knew where the better fruit was. So I use this as a learning lesson. I explained to my kids what we're trying to accomplish in the strategy. Those who put in the extra 10% will get rewards that are that much better. I'm crazy, I know. Speaking of crazy, updates from the past Stock Hacker Academy students keep coming in, partly because I keep asking for them. Almost all of our students, they're all personal friends of mine, including Tim Collins, who shared with me. He's been investing since late July, and he's up 10% since then. So, an old friend of mine. We've had many friends of mine on this podcast already, so I don't know how much more we have to recount people's success doing this strategy. And for the next Stock Hacker Academy the next 12-month program begins on October 3rd. We already have almost double the students we have from the session that we did in the spring. Of course, best-selling author of Get Rich with Options, my mentor Lee Lowell, will be delivering the majority of the course, like 90% of it. And Lee actually helped me make $500 this morning in a pretty rough market right now. I was able to time some nice shares quite nicely. And this is a side hustle. It doesn't take me much time. I actually kind of enjoy this. Anything that makes me money, I enjoy. And Lee sends me all his trades. I'll never be a stock analyst. I'm personally happy to outsource all the research, as I don't want another 9-to-5 job. Nor do I have 30 years of experience to properly screen and analyze and pick stocks. Anyways, and also like $500 I made this morning. I don't know many people who make that much per property in a month in cash flow. Again, that's American dollars. To make this as easy as possible for our students, they too receive Lee's trades for 12 months. We do everything we can to ensure our student success while keeping the costs down. Link is in the show notes for anyone who would like to learn this side hustle that many of our past students, I think probably 90% of our past students are real estate investors, and anyone who's been practicing this regularly, they likely cash flow better than their real estate. Link to register is in the show notes, or just go to www.stockhackeracademy.ca. Again, it's stockhackeracademy.ca. If it's not called Stock Hacker, I have nothing to do with it. With my stock hacking, my plan is to grow my portfolio large enough so that Cherry and I may fund the Hamilton Bastion Brigade with the cash flow generated. Our operating budget each year is currently around $70,000 a year. So it's not a ton of money to so many of you. It's not cheap either, but we don't have much in expenses either, as we have no employees, no staff, no contractors, no admin costs, and almost no overhead. The corporate filing costs are donated by Cherry, including the labor. The venue for Thanksgiving is being donated by real estate investor Charles Waugh. We run the charity like a business, extremely lean, in order to have maximum impact with limited budget and lots of sweat equity. I'm not trying to impress anyone, just trying to state facts and be as transparent as possible. Cherry and I are the number one donors for this year. And at the Hamilton Basket Brigade, we're no one special. We just know that there's a bunch of families out there with young children who are in situations that weren't determined by themselves. For example, the family that I'll be supporting, they lost the sole breadwinner and father of the family to sudden death. So that will be my job to hopefully make them a better Thanksgiving. What we do at the Basket Brigade, and we're doing this on October 10th, it's basically a kid's birthday party. It's the best way to explain it. We have a commercial barbecue. So we're hosting a barbecue. We have a commercial barbecue thanks to real estate investor Roger Auger, who used to sell hot dogs in order to buy houses. My team of coaches, James Maggs, Chris Hook, Tammy, Dee Tomaso, are all team captains. They've all been on this podcast too. They're captains of our volunteers. Tammy's also our DJ. We'll have pizza and pop and cupcakes as well as burgers and hot dogs. We'll also have the lovely Wonder Woman. Yeah, it's basically a kid's party. And as mentioned, Cherry and I put our money where our mouth is. Cherry and I are the number one donors for 2020. And if you too would like to donate, the website is www.hamiltonbasketbrigade.com. We are good for volunteers, as we're actually trying to streamline this event. Being COVID times, we are limiting the number of gifts that we're buying as well. And so we're going to probably do one gift per family and make up the rest with gift cards. So the budget remains the same. We're just going to buy less gifts in order to streamline the operation. And if we do have any volunteer spots that become available, we'll make them first available to donors. So that's that with the charity. We'll do it again for Christmas in case anyone's interested in that. As the summer ends, we move into fall. I look back at a summer of the haves and have-nots. I've called it that many times, or this whole recession of the haves and have-nots. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm pretty sure you're among the haves, or you will be joining the haves in the near future. Personally, I had one of my best summers without a conference to plan for, without the Wealth Hacker conference to plan for. I worked a lot less and I golfed a lot more. I spent more time with my family, and I was grateful to have my friends, which includes my team members and my clients. The haves that I know are really nice people who don't have to stress out about money, which translates to more happiness, in my opinion. And that leads us to this week's guest, who is also a have, as she is a real estate investor. This week's guest is the lovely Kayla Andrade, founder of Ontario Landlords Watch, a grassroot advocacy group for good landlords and good tenants. And I say good tenants because if the environment is good for landlords, that only benefits good tenants. Kayla also has her own investment properties in Cambridge, Ontario, her own property management business called Boardwalk Property Management. She's the mother of 4 kids, and she has, including one 1-year-old. She's also our guest speaker for the next iWIN meeting on Saturday morning of October 24th. We do have limited seating to accommodate for safe and social distancing, but we'll have enough space online via Zoom, followed by lunch at a local restaurant that could use our support as a place where we can network with myself and other like-minded investors. Hopefully Kayla can stick around as well. The feedback from our last meeting last weekend was excellent, thanks to our guest speaker, Jules Mckenzie, and also my team for providing local market knowledge, what's going on in real estate in terms of actual deals, multiple offers, what rentals are going for among investors that we know or our own property. Nothing beats experience on the streets versus just, anyone can Google stats. It was simply amazing. Jules's presentation was simply amazing with all the knowledge he shared in overcoming obstacles that would have honestly buried the average Canadian. Kayla is also super awesome in being our collective voice for improvements at the Landlord and Tenant Board and the provincial government and her local government in Cambridge, Ontario. She's here today sharing her best practices in tenant management, reporting tenant credit history, market update in Cambridge, Ontario, and just overall being awesome. And again, she is our guest speaker October 24th. Our meetings are now public. Our iWIN meetings are now public, and the link to register is in the show notes. It's too long for me to say, so just go to the show notes. If you're already on my email distribution list, then you'll get it. You'll see it in your email. And without further ado, I give you Kayla Andrade.
I was going to ask what's keeping you busy, but it's kind of like more like what's not keeping you busy. Because that's usually the question I lead off with. But I know since we've had you on, you had a kid.
Yep.
And it sounds like you've either opened or you joined at least 2 other businesses. and Ontario Landlord Watch is getting a lot more media attention. So you're definitely spreading the word, and I'm sure that takes your time because it's always you. You are the face of the organization, so that's you on site and organizing these things.
Definitely opened my own property management company with Jen.
Oh, it is your own. Okay.
That's been really, really good. I actually had to, slow it down a little bit, I think. And that's where I was. I was with Tahani, so I'm going to be renting out, doing leasing for one of her units.
Mm-hmm.
And so beautiful unit. I don't doubt we can get some good tenants in there. Then we got our media, getting the media attention. We had a meeting with the landlord and tenant board to talk about the changes that we want to see with the landlord and tenant board. Just a TV show with Seth Ferguson.
Yeah, he's coming on the pod soon.
Awesome. Yeah, he's awesome. He's like a chameleon. Like you're talking to him, as soon as the camera goes on, he's like, I'm like, you're good.
He's on. He's like a totally different person.
Yeah. And then we got accepted offer on a house that we really, really want. But my husband's like, we got to sell our house now, and we have to get that ready to be listed on the market for Monday. Yay!
Okay,
we weren't expecting, we got a broken window from the kids rocking the rocking chair back into the front window. We need a roof, we need some windows. So I'm really hoping we can possibly get top dollar, even though all this stuff needs to be done. But I found my dream house, and I got to do whatever I can. I would sell the husband, but he needs to be on the mortgage. So.
I'm trying to categorize the most stressful things in people's lives. Moving is one of them. Having a kid is one of them.
Yeah.
Starting a new business is one of them.
Yeah.
And in your spare time, you lobby for landlords.
Yeah. And I'm guiding the other landlord groups that are advocating. I'm giving them all of what I've done, how I've done it. Here's the material. This is what we need to advocate. So I'm kind of training them now to do it. And then I became a huge fan, and hopefully, potentially a partner. I would love for them to make me a partner in it, but Landlord Credit Bureau is our my next adventure.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hang on.
I do spend time with kids.
Do they have any landlords at the tribunal that are at that level?
The which?
Did you say you're looking at becoming a partner at the LTB?
No, LCB.
LCB. Okay, sorry. What's LCB?
LCB is Landlord Credit Bureau.
Okay.
So they are the reporting station for landlords to report their tenants' monthly payment history, and that will be phenomenal for the tenants who pay on time. It's now going to help to go towards their credit, and so that they can potentially get themselves into being a homeowner or even a landlord themselves. And for the tenants who like to abuse the system and go from landlord to landlord, you're now going to have access to that monthly reporting of what landlords are reporting very, very soon. And they're going to be offering credit checks a lot less than tenant verification services. And then you're also, I've always been a really strong believer in their program and how it works, because when you're reporting someone into Landlord Credit Bureau with the email that you have for your tenant, they get notified to inform them that they've been reported. And they've had very much success on tenants communicating now with their landlord, trying to square up to get them out of the Landlord Credit Bureau. I put my tenant in there, my one tenant that I had bad in 17 years. Within 24 hours, he was contacting us.
Do what?
phenomenal. And it's like, oh yeah, buddy, like, you're in the bank now, and they report it to Equifax, and it reports it into the collection agency. There is some other services that I can't talk about right now that are going to be helping, that are coming up in the near future. So I'm excited to give updates on what they're doing, but this is what is needed. This is the repercussions that tenants need to know, that this is where landlords are reporting, this is where we're checking, and this is where they're going to end up. And they'll get constant reminders every single month that your rent is due, or now it's late. Now you're in the collections for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So it shows them, as long as it stays there, it's going to continue to affect your credit report. And it's just phenomenal what this company did. And I can't believe we never found out about them. They've been doing it since 2012, but they've been using a lot of their funds into creating the platform and getting the development part of it. And now they're into let's get them out there. And I'm so pleased to be that person to get them out there, because Landlord Credit Bureau is what is needed as we go through these changes and getting the RTA and the LTV. It is a slow process, as you can tell, a decade doing this. The government wants landlords to feel the burn and get us to house these people. If not, this is what's going to happen, where the municipalities have to come up with the funds now to pay for these shelters, the emergency shelters, the motels, and that's why they're going to continue to do it. But with the changes of Bill 184 and with the Landlord and Tenant Board now, I can see an increase in how fast these evictions are happening and how that format is going with getting the orders by email.
Okay, Kayla, you said a mouthful there. Where to start? Okay, hang on. So for Landlord Credit Bureau, at what point can you so say, I don't know, say a tenant's done something bad. Here's an example. I had a tenants move out. They left me with like a $500 cleaning bill. Is that something that would go to Landlord Credit Bureau, or is it just non-payment of rent?
There's a checklist there. It's about 6 different questions. They could talk about if there's damages that were left on the property. And then it will also give you an area where you can give a review. So you can say that there was so much damage to this unit at this time, and that the review part will be seen by landlords and tenants, but the 6 questions will only be accessible just for the landlords. And you can report your past tenants up for it has to be within a 2-year time frame to be able to report the tenants. You don't need their permission to do so. This is an amount that's owing. We have they have a legal description of how they're allowed to. If you have your good tenants, you don't really need their permission, but there is a document that you can include with your lease, or get them to sign to say, I'm going to now report you for your good payment history. So it helps you build your credit as you continue to pay your rent on time every single month.
That actually helps them build their credit.
Because if you look at everything from your car payments, utilities, and all the bills, your credit card, but your rent is so big, it's the biggest so much money, usually. And you pay it every time. How come it's not going towards something for you?
Right.
And now it is. They're finally the first one in Canada to be really doing it. Now, Rent Check, they do that. They want you to report your tenant's monthly payment history, but they don't send out that email of welcome to Landlord Credit Bureau to your tenants. They don't inform the tenants that they've been paying, that you haven't paid, now you have to pay. They don't send them reminder notices that you should be paying your rent. And they also are going to be working at where there's a dispute resolution program. So if you put something into the database and the tenants now want to dispute it, they have a dispute program to find out who's actually telling the truth there. So they're almost like that mediation that is needed, that the landlord and tenant board should be doing, but they got first dibs at it.
And when you give the paperwork to the tenant during the lease signing, and if they refuse to sign it, it's like kind of like red flag everywhere. So you expect to have problems paying me? Because the big bonus for all parties is if they're able to build their credit, they're able to buy a home sooner, and then we can and because you and I are in Ontario, we have rent control. We need tenant turnover in order to raise our rents. So it's truly win-win in every area.
Oh, it's the best. I tell all the property managers right now is that we need you, especially the big ones, because of the fact that they have so many tenants and they've had turnover. We need that data to continue to keep reporting in one spot. And when you're screening your tenants saying, oh, just to let you know, we do report your monthly payment history to Landlord Credit Bureau. This is going to be great for you to build your credit because we're going to report you to be on time every single month. right? And they go, whoa, well, what if I'm late? Oh no, I'm going to be in the database. I'm now going to be picked up after I decide to abuse this landlord. The next landlord's going to pick up on it because they're going to be able to have access to that information. But if tenants are paying on time for the next 12 months, they can actually get a certificate from Landlord Credit Bureau as well. So that document could help them when they need to go and look for a new place.
That's fantastic.
Right?
It's such a passive way. How come this is the first time I'm hearing about this? Why are you keeping the secret?
I had to get to know about them first, and that's what I do when I find different programs or rental guarantee programs. Like I want to know what's out there, because if someone is talking about it in the group, I want to know I know about it, right? And then I put them through the ringer, and I'm asking them this question, I'm asking them that question. I'm like, oh. And as soon as I put him in, Erwin, within 24 hours, my tenant was able to reach out to me to be like, oh, sorry about that. And he's talking about how he's going to declare bankruptcy over $7,500. We're like, okay. But
those are red flags.
And this is the concept where, as my property management business now taking over units that we manage, a lot of them come to us with problems. So knowing that we come in with that, we are reporting your non-paying tenant, this can help them go, okay, like we gotta ship up or ship out kind of deal, and it's going to really help with the negotiation of getting the rent.
Fascinating.
So if you're interested, I can get the founder and the CEO, as well as their sales department, Grant. You can have all three of them on your podcast, because I'm sure your members are going to have questions left, right, and center of how they can sign up, and any other type of questions that are not read on the website. They're all there, all the questions, but some people don't read. So
no, I definitely need to hear more about this. Sorry, Kayla. I may have to ask these questions. I'll ask them these questions as well later. So, what if? So, I have tenants right now. What if one default? Well, here's a good example. I have student rentals, right? I had one student just bail because COVID, and the university is not just doing virtual, so she just bailed. What's my recourse? Do I have recourse with Landlord Credit Bureau?
I think that's going to be a great area, because I think changes are coming with the Landlord and Tenant Board and the RTA about that, because of these students who are bailing. They're feeling that there's no reason for these people to stay in there. They're going to try to get them out of their year lease. But if you are looking at the lease I'll get Grant's opinion on this, because this is a great area, because if they are changing it. But if you see that they have 12 months and you see that they haven't paid you rent and they bailed on it, you can ding them every single month, because they technically owe you a contract, and that contract is 12 months of rent. And in reality, if they want you to show your due diligence, and they want you to go out and try to re-rent it to offset that thing. And if you can, great. And you can't really go after the tenant for the remainder of it, you got to show that you've been trying to rent it out. But if you can't rent it out after they bail, that's when you can go to the courts and issue them to pay the amount owing for that contract that they signed for.
This is all fascinating.
Oh yeah, I tell you, I got more tricks.
Okay, before we move on to more tricks, where can people find the information on your property management company? What geography do you cover, and the LCB?
So we have Boardwalk Property Management.ca. We took that name because of the conference, but obviously you got the big Boardwalk Property investment group. So I hope people don't confuse us. So it's Boardwalk Property Management.ca that you can find us, and we're covering Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, and Brantford.
That's a long name.
Yeah, we're gonna be like we're like BWPM. But we wanted to make sure people understood it was Boardwalk Property Management. We're different.
Oh, and then how about a general market update? Because I find when I speak to like the everyday investor, most don't know what's going on the ground. So you have your ear to the ground. How is the rental market?
Hot.
Hot?
It's still hot. We're still like the units that are coming up. they're going very quick. There's a lot of rental responses when we put a rental unit up. It's still going, and it's normally a little slow at this time because it's in the fall. People already
Back to
wanted to
school.
move for school.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of Toronto coming into our area and still
Really?
wanting to rent. Yeah, because they know they can work from home now. A lot of companies started working from home, so then they're now, why be in the city paying high prices when we can just potentially drive, 45 minutes in order to get into the city when we have to go into the office type of deal.
No
So we're
kidding.
seeing a lot of Toronto, even for buying. Toronto market is crazy. It's driving our house prices up, and it's like, wait until I sell my house and I buy one before you guys come down here.
Yeah. As I was actually looking, I looked it up yesterday. Waterloo is up, I believe, 21% from August this year over last August. So yeah, your market's that's really unhealthy. It's great for you to sell. You'll likely get multiple offers. Sorry?
Amazon's coming into Cambridge. They're you get it. They're coming into Cambridge now, so that's going to bring another one. And Cambridge and Waterloo has been like the artsy tech hub. So we've always been a very desirable area to invest in, and that's where our Toronto landlords are coming, going, hey, I got a duplex for like $620,000, and we're like, yeah, I would pay $620,000 for a duplex. But hey, if that's cheap to you and the numbers work, it's all good.
It's cheap to them. So what style of property is popular? All styles, or anything in particular that's doing really well?
For renting?
Yeah, for renting.
Or just buying? For renting, they just want to be able to have like that. It's got to be near the areas of transportation, next to all the amenities. But honestly, anything is renting. Anything is renting. Anything. You can do whatever you're putting there. It doesn't even have to look nice, and it's still renting. But again, we always tell our landlords, put some TLC into it, because we want to be able to put a high rent so that the type of people that are coming to us, they're the ones that are like, the nurses that are living down the road. We just took our triplex and redid 2 of our units, both of them at the same time, re-insulated, plumbing, electrical, kitchens, you name it. So we have like the 2-bedroom unit up to $1,625 plus hydro. And the bottom one is going for $1,525, and that's even below what we can actually charge for.
Did you already rent them out?
Oh yeah. One day.
One day.
We spend all day, you're going through like all the applications that are coming through, because normally sometimes we take a couple of days, usually an average of 3 to 4 days to do open houses. And the type of people that were coming, there were so many of them that we had a nice selection to choose from.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Tough question. I don't know if you can answer it. Do you prefer the Toronto tenant versus the local tenant, or is it just purely the strength of the application?
It's going to be them as a person. It's really about meeting them in person, talking to them about why they're moving, what kind of income do they have, what kind of job, how long have you been there. So really, I don't care where they come from, as long as that they're not coming with bed bugs, and and that they have the job to pay the rent.
Did you think this would happen 6 months ago? This is the weirdest recession, Great Depression, whatever pandemic ever.
Well, you gotta think, we have all of our snowbirds that came back, and we don't know when they plan to leave again. So they're taking over houses that they would potentially rent it, and now those tenants are now having to look elsewhere. Then we have the people who are planning to not travel anymore, and they're taking over their units. Their daughters are not going to school anymore and to live, so they're taking over their rental units to put their kids in as well. So it's going to be it's really weird to see how COVID played out and how things are working, because I know a lot of people are working now from home and they can get a benefit of that.
Are there any areas of real estate that you see that are weak? Like I gave the example, student rentals. I think that was a short-term thing, though.
Oh, students are. I had a guy that wanted me to do students, and honestly, I didn't even want to touch it. It was so hard to see that it's in Waterloo. It was already almost overload it with student housing anyways in Waterloo. And now with COVID, now you have an abundance of people, and you can see price drops on the room rentals that would normally be at a $600-700 room rental. You're now seeing them trying to put it for $500. And even for, you know, a good couple of years ago when I worked student housing, we were renting out students in Guelph for $620. And then they still had to pay on top of parking. So it was really dicey to see all of our landlords who are affected through COVID with the students, because we don't know when that's going to come back. And that's why some of these students are now taking over some of their parents' rental units, because they don't want to, they're not going back to school. So why pay for a room rental? Now they want to be on their own and continue to do schoolwork there. But school is definitely one. I've been doing showings through COVID. A lot of people stopped and was doing it through, you know, Zoom meetings and things like that. And I really put the mask, put the glove, put the whole hazmat suit on if you have to. You really need to be on site, and you really need them to see it and ask questions and really get a feel to them, because that's how you screen these people. And you got to get personal with them. Like, you talk to them like they're your friend, like they're just here to look at it, like you don't care, like that what their income is, where they've been working. You just act like, but you feel them out through the questions that you're asking them. You're like, oh yeah, how long you guys been together? Oh, you guys live in the same house, but he lives in the basement and you live in your room? That's a little weird, and you're 35. You know, just little things like that, just to give you that, you got to get an overall impression on them before you rent to them. And that's what's different for us. That's why I wanted to get into property management. And I'm like, the 184 is not everything, but if I got into doing at least the tenant screening, or helping to do tenant screening, we can start making an impact on the industry and making sure that we're getting good tenants. Because if you've got good tenants, you don't have to worry about the LTV, and you don't have to worry so much about the RTA. This is going to be about picking that right tenant, and I want to be there to help them and give them all my years of experience to help them.
I'm often jealous of my Toronto investor friends on the great tenant profile they generally have. You know, the tenant profile that fears for their credit rating, like that's the tenant I want, right? Right, one that has a future to protect.
And that's what I did when I reported my tenant for the Landlord Credit Bureau. I reported his wife as well. And he's like, my husband's like, why did you report her? I said, her name was on the contract. She was still there when he went into a delinquency. She bailed before the eviction happened, yes, but there's a contract. She didn't sign an N11. She wasn't taken off the lease. And because she had good credit, that's why we accepted her. I said, she needs to know that she now needs to put pressure on her ex to come up with his portion of the money in order to pay us, so that her credit is now going to be fixed. You know, so this is the overall power that Landlord Credit Bureau is now going to hold when we deal with difficult tenants who are not paying and thinking that they can skip out of contracts that they've signed up for. This is what is needed.
Kayla, I have to say this is a bit of breath of fresh air, because it's rare I hear anything positive coming out of about LTB. Can you tell us? Can you share? You tell me where you want to go. You want to talk about the new bill? You want to talk about your experience in relaying landlord problems to the LTB? Where would you like to go next?
You can go anywhere. It could be on the Bill 184 and how that is still being, like, that is the fine print, right? Like you got the bill in itself, and now you got to look at what the Landlord and Tenant Board is going to do with that, because they got to create policies. And if you look at the problems that we've all been faced with, the problems are at the Landlord and Tenant Board. Yes, the RTA is not what we want, and it's definitely skewed into protecting tenants, but it's the rights that we do have in the RTA and what way the Landlord and Tenant Board takes it and how they get that policy. That is what's going to really determine how the next the grand opening of the Landlord and Tenant Board is going to be. Because right now, when we had our meeting, knowing that they did stakeholders meetings to talk about the rules and the procedures and the adjournments, as well as the payment agreement form that has been out there as that solution to allow landlords to either get their eviction quicker or not. Because it seems like if you didn't work out a payment plan, you weren't going to get your eviction very quick because there was no payment plan in place. But in order to get your payment plan submitted to the Landlord and Tenant Board, you have to have an L1 application put in place. So they're still going to get their $200, but now your payment plan is going to be able to be submitted. Now, if that tenant fails to do their payment plan, there's still that option that they can ask for an actual hearing. We now need to be at the forefront with the Landlord and Tenant Board when we do our consultations with them to inform them that we need to have that payment plan to be evidence. If it does need to go back to a hearing, that payment plan needs to be evidence to the adjudicator. And that payment plan needs to understand that we had a payment plan. There's no other payment plans once we go back to the Landlord and Tenant Board.
Why do you have to go back?
This was all part of Bill 184. The NDP were like, oh, they need a day in court. They're not going to justice. And like, no. We have to look at, here's applications from the hearing adjudicator can handle, that needs to handle.
Yeah.
And here's what resolution officers can handle. So that's where they're leading into. I call them customer service officers, the ones that just picked up the phone, but now they're called dispute resolution officers. We need to give them a good task of the applications that we need to file, and almost like a filtering system to say, okay, can we deal with this? And is it a more complicated situation where it does need to be held by a hearing? And if so, and that way the filtering system, if there's something illegal happening or the landlord is threatening, this is where they need to be able to see, filter and be able to prioritize the applications that are coming in to make it fair.
Sorry, Kayla, just had some lag.
That's all good.
But we were talking about the dispute resolution officers. This is where my problem is, right? If there's no dispute if you don't have the money, why does there need to be a hearing? So at least give the dispute resolution officer, just like how, like everyone here on listening to this is a real estate investor. You go get a mortgage. You need a proof of down payment, right? Here's my bank statement. At least provide the dispute resolution officer a copy of your bank statement. You have screen capture of your online banking, whatever. Prove you have the money. Otherwise, I don't see the point of a hearing.
And that's the same thing when it comes down to, in the RTA, it says you have to make your rent payments. Even though you have maintenance concerns, you still have to pay your rent. It's not legal. It's illegal to withhold your rent. But to know that you're disputing it, why are you disputing it? That is the rent. That is what you need to pay. And that's what we said to the chair of the Landlord and Tenant Board through our stakeholder meetings, to say that there is government programs out there. There's lots of them. There are housing prevention, homeless prevention program deposits. So if you work that government program dispute resolution, it's cheaper to keep people in their homes than to have them on the streets.
What's your outlook then? Do you think things will improve?
I think that things are going to improve slowly if we look at our government-wise, because they can't come out and do the necessary changes that are absolutely needed, because it's honestly like political suicide. Everything that they do now, they're gearing up for an election. They're trying to gain the interest and the votes from our tenants, but still trying to hold on to investors. But if you look at the wintertime coming, this is when all of the elected officials will talk about housing, affordable housing, the supply of housing. So they will start talking about more. They're even talking about pod homes, and they're talking about these trailers being positioned in a local park in my area as the alternative way of getting housing. And we look at that going, what you're going to do is you create these shipping containers or these pod homes or tiny homes. You're now just going to increase the rate of rent on normal size units. It's not good to put people who are probably dealing with mental health or addiction into a small facility, such as a pod home. And at the same time, you're still not getting to the ground issue of housing, the housing crisis. So why are you just keep throwing money at temporary Band-Aids and giving it to developers of these pod homes, when in reality, it's not going to be good for the community to have this type of building put in, as well as it's not going to be good to build up that supply that is what's causing the affordable housing crisis in Ontario. But in order to get people interested into secondary suites, it's the homeowners. And when homeowners look into what it's like to be a landlord and the RTA in Ontario, this is where they rather take their money and invest in other provinces.
I don't know which province. Or just stick it in the stock market. I haven't heard anything positive out of most of the provinces in Canada besides BC and Ontario. I'm glad to hear that you think things are going to get better. Sorry, am I breaking up?
No, I think you're good now.
Okay.
The Attorney General. Am I still lagging?
You're fine for me.
So the Attorney General, he said that the model that he's trying to adopt through making things streamlined at the Landlord and Tenant Board was going to be something very similar to what the BC does. So we're still learning the BC market to see how they deal with their dispute resolution, but he is trying to follow that province.
What do they do?
There's a lot of it, they talk about like a form where it's a communication through email. And I think that's why the different type of changes that are happening with Bill 184 needed to go through before the Landlord and Tenant Board opened up. The NDP would talk about, hey, we're in the midst of a pandemic and an affordable housing crisis, and you want to make it easier to evict tenants. And we're like, it's not easier. If you look at the process, it's still a long, lengthy process. Mm-hmm. It's about providing the customer service and the justice that landlords need at the Landlord and Tenant Board. Mm-hmm. And if these tenants fail to make their requirements and they are resulted into relocating or having to go into the shelter, then so be it. But again, this is something that needed to be changed on a provincial level in order to have the Landlord and Tenant Board allowing to do their proper changes of how they now deal with the applications that come to the board. But right now I've heard that there's about 11,000 applications that are at the Landlord and Tenant Board right now. And that's just the backlog. But we've had on a normal, the last stats, we had 58,423 rental applications for non-payment of rent alone. So I think we're just still on track of meeting that deadline.
I sure wish real estate was easier.
There's still hope. But while we wait for that hope, while we continue to fight every single day and get our landlords fighting with us and getting them to make these phone calls to the elected officials and the Attorney General, this is about utilizing Landlord Credit Bureau to our advantage to help us pick our right tenants.
Right. At least help us screen.
Well, I can see right now in my group, I've been doing it for 10 years, and we have our landlords like, I hate this, I'm done, I'm out of it. Like, since the strike and since the reopening and the eviction ban being lifted and the Landlord and Tenant Board not addressing the new applications, we have more landlords now selling their homes, their rentals. And it's like, is it the multi-units or is it the condo? Is it the single family home? Is it the semi? They are the ones that are going to be gone first. Because they're easily able to be sold and sold and bought by a person that wants to move into it. Even some of our landlords are like, I'm putting it on the market and I'm only going to sell it to someone who wants to move into it. Like, oh.
Like they care.
They want to make sure that they're sending a strong message to our government to say, we're pulling until you figure out what you're doing. We have landlords holding on to their rental units and not renting them out until the Landlord and Tenant Board is fixed and ready to go. They want to, what else can landlords do? Like going to a protest and shutting down the Landlord and Tenant Board, it's going to get you some media attention. Maybe some elected officials are going to see it. If you have a protest outside of Queen's Park, maybe they'll talk about, we had some changes for the landlords with Bill 184, and then they'll just, tell us to go to the side because they need to walk through. But we really need to unite ourselves together and have that protection through different types of companies to provide services in a way for us to get our own protection. Because if you can't get it from the government, we have to look for other people to other services to help us with our protection.
You bring up a great point about how a lot of landlords are just going to moving to selling. We have clients that are doing that as well. And like you said, the trend has been, so anecdotally, your observation of people from Toronto leaving for the suburbs, like Dr. Sherry Cooper, chief economist for Dominion Lending Center, her newsletter said the same thing, that people are leaving the main centers for suburbs, for properties with a yard. So for the landlord that is struggling and they want to sell, in my experience, we have a decent amount of experience in selling homes. The person who's going to pay the most money for the home is the person that's going to move in. The person who's going to move in that wants the home for themselves will pretty much outpay any investor. Mm-hmm. So what's happening is we're losing rental stock, right? And so it's reality, but it's also part of the problem. Part of the large problem overall about the lack of supply of housing, right? And I'll share with you, I've shared this a couple times on the podcast. I'm pretty sure there's going to be an election this fall. I'm pretty sure the federal Liberals will win, and I'm pretty sure they're going to increase immigration. So we're going to have even more people. And where's the economy strong? Like BC and Ontario. So where are we going to get more people? So when does this problem get any better?
And they look like, we've had our director of housing, like she either got fired or quit right after she said it on the news broadcast. Like they can't keep up with the amount of people needing housing. Yeah. They can't build it fast enough. And we've always said that small landlords are the 50% of the housing stock. And we need to convince more small investors to get into the business by creating that secondary suite. In order for them to get into the business, put another unit on the unit. And how fast can we actually build a secondary suite versus here's some land, we're going to build 48 units. Yeah. How long is it going to take you to build that? So they know we're partners. And here the landlords are the people who are like, we have the land, so we're going to pay taxes. We are putting our money into creating this unit. We're going to be able to get the rent from it. We're going to deal with the maintenance, the management. And in reality, you might subsidize some of our rental units if they're on any type of government assistance, but in reality, they want to be the builder, the land, the maintenance, the management. Is like taxpayers are paying for an unsustainable system when all you have to do is work with small and pop operations, and you will see a turnaround in our housing supply.
Mm-hmm. Do you know where things are going with tertiary suites in Cambridge? I think is it Cambridge? That's
for secondary suites?
No, I'm talking about third.
Oh, the problem is all this building code. So that's another thing that I'm doing on my area, is also trying to get very heavily involved with the elected officials in the municipality, as well as try to get on their housing committee, because the building code needs to be reviewed. A lot of my landlords here are struggling to get secondary suites, loan a third unit in there. They have these different type of policies and procedures, and they have a 60-40 split type of policy. They have to have parking. They need to have a washer and dryer in the unit. I'm like, listen, guys, like you guys just did a blast in your region where you're number one for your people that are on the waiting list. You need 1-bedroom apartments. 1-bedroom apartments that can be created by all of these baby boomers who are not wanting to downsize their home right now because it doesn't make sense for them to downsize finance-wise. Mm-hmm. And you can convince them to take their money and put it into a secondary suite in order to get that 1-bedroom unit. So Cambridge is deemed to be the worst to deal with. Kitchener is definitely someone that they've been very pleasant to work with when it comes down to getting the permits. But Cambridge, they got to change their ways, and they're only really into what other kind of shelter can we put up? Like, no, we don't need another shelter. Waterloo doesn't have one. Give Waterloo one. But there's actually a city march that's happening on Saturday where the citizens here are really upset with the type of crime activity and the drug addictions that's here, and they come from all over out west. Like they come here thinking that the Bridges, which is our local shelter, is the best thing ever, and that we have all these programs But it's getting bad, but we're trying to figure out a way to kind of clean up the city so it doesn't hinder people wanting to live here, because it's honestly like little Europe. It brings in a lot of movies for taping, and a lot of tourists come here because of the way our city looks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's looking really bad right now with not giving proper support to the people who are suffering from mental health or addiction.
It's tough out there.
We tell them, like, we look at all of our housing issues and we're not a one size fits all. Landlords are small landlords. We're not social workers. We can't quite deal with people that have, complex issues, but there's got to be a stepping stool to that where, that rooming houses, co-living, just like they do it with elderly women and doing co-living. We have to work a system like that for people with mental health and addiction and wrap that around with social workers in order to see them improve, guide them on how to improve. And if you see someone that's in like a 3-bedroom house, 3 people, you see one that is really improving, and now you can offer them a unit somewhere else to get them out on their own. It's got to be a stepping stool. You can't just take them from the streets and say, here, here's a place. Don't destroy it. Don't get kicked out. Make sure your rent is paid, and don't spend it on drugs. Don't you love me on, Erwin?
No, it's real. I live in a suburb. We don't have these problems.
We got lots of problems. You just gotta kick them down, give them a solution. That's all it is, about knowing the problem, getting the solution, and getting to the right people to help you get that. But with my MPP, who's now kicked out of the PC caucus, I'm like, damn it, I love her. Yeah, maybe that's why I love her. But lots of improvements.
So what else is going on? What's OLW up to these days?
Oh, we're doing really well. We're just over 5,000 members. We still have a growing list of people trying to get in. We want to make sure that we're putting the right people into the group, because there is another Facebook group on for landlords that have been penetrated by Parkdale rent strikers, and said that they came on their Twitter and said that they successfully infiltrated this landlord group, and they started taking screenshots of what the landlords were saying. And you know what, like, it's still social media, even though it's a closed group or not, you still want to be careful, but landlords should not feel shy about telling like it is.
Yeah.
You need elected officials to come across that information, and you need them to be able to understand the issues that landlords are dealing with in order to try to get them to see the light. We want to potentially change our way of allowing people into the group, where you might have to be certified by Landlord Credit Bureau, because they do ask for your credentials in order to get you reporting your monthly payment history. So we might be moving towards having you a member of Landlord Credit Bureau before we allow you into the group, because then very active, we have active members that are in there, and it's been on a very strong mission. Like, we don't have anyone that we kicked one person out probably in the last 6 months. So, and that's just because they were not going with the mission that everybody's going with. But in reality, we have to tighten it up a little bit more. We were going to try to lean it towards like an advocacy nonprofit type of way of doing it, but I want the landlord group to stay free. I know I put a lot of work. I put 10 years into this, and it takes a lot to really do what I do. But instead of paying a membership to an association like this, it's like your best bet for protection for me to know that you will go and sign up for a premium account with Landlord Credit Bureau. It's free to report to Landlord Credit Bureau, but if you want to get the premium account where it's a click of a button to get them to Equifax and to collections, I know that is going to be the game changer for Ontario landlords and tenants.
Bad news for bad tenants.
Stay free.
It's not necessarily that all tenants with bad credit are problematic. Like, I've had tenants where, divorce, so it's pretty classic, and their credit gets damaged, and they still make good income. So it's not all bad. But the people that who have ethical and moral issues about paying for their bills, like, those are the people I have problems with.
Oh yeah, like the rent strikers. It's like, I still have my bills to pay, guys. Like, just because you think it's COVID, I'm not the government. I'm not supposed to give you everything for free. But the government really made a mess of it from the get-go. They should have said, don't worry, we have these programs that are out there. If you are in desperate need of paying your rent, please reach out to these agencies. We will make sure that you don't become homeless or evicted, by reaching out to us. Not like, you don't have to pay rent, no food. I'm like, really? Like, who writes your scripts, Ford?
It's not just him though. It's pretty consistent across all media. Like I posted something just last week or this week about opportunity hoarding, right? Like, give me a break. Well, this is Canada. This is the greatest country in the world. Like, how many people do you know are really successful?
And that's where they think that we're the big landlords, we're all rich, and we're really trying to emphasize that there's a level of landlords, right? We want them to see that type of level and how it affects each type of level. But now with the new Ford Nation coming out and telling Steve Clark, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, that he now needs to write legislation to freeze the 2021 rent increase. And there's so many landlords out there that said, hey, here's your 2021 rent increase, but with COVID, let's see how it goes before we'll take effect. And they've either not given it or they'll now start kicking it up again because COVID is starting to kind of die down where people are getting back to work. Now they want to get in and prevent people. And I've heard it's from all units, not even the, how with new builds, you're not underneath rent control. They're stopping them from raising their rents for 2021 as well. So that legislation is going to be coming out in the fall. There is going to be some public consultation that's going to be happening that we're going to be a part of. But we got to fight for the fact that we need a whole new different system of rent increases. We need to be able to calculate in, here's my region, this is utilities because I pay utilities all inclusive. We need to be able to raise our rent to this much based on their set rates that are new this year for the utility companies. That's something that should be only fair. The 2.5% rent increase, the cap, that's got to go. It's got to be to the concept that, investment is a business and the numbers need to make sense. Right. This is why you might see more landlords abusing the N12 and the N13 notices. But instead of addressing the rent increase and how to raise rents, they decided to create a bill that would penalize a landlord for unlawfully evicting their tenant from $25,000 to $50,000 and for a corporation from $100,000 up to $250,000. So that's great. I'm glad these landlords, we shouldn't be doing that unlawfully. But when the numbers don't make sense and you are busting your butt as a landlord, what are you going to do? Are you going to try to relocate them? Are you going to try to move into the unit yourself for the next year to make those numbers work? Or are you going to sell it to another investor and hopefully they want to move into it? So this is where, they created a policy by not really addressing the issue that they have.
Yeah, because my insurance went up like 10%. Can they hopefully Ford Nation can freeze that too? So then I don't have costs that I have to, cover, increased costs that I have to cover.
All of our contractors, sorry, everything's can't pay you.
Yeah. Ford Nation, please freeze our contractor rates, the labor rates that we pay people, and material costs at Home Depot. If you could freeze that too.
Yep, property taxes are
freeze that.
Everything that lets everyone live for free. But again, you put people on the CERB benefit, and then you have all these companies who are hiring, and no one wants to go get a job now because you're making more money being at home. And even for people who live in rent geared to income housing who have part-time jobs, they got on the CERB benefit, and because they're now on the CERB benefit, their rent geared to income went from $450 a month up to $777 a month because they're now receiving CERB. I'm like, oh God, what a mess. But this is going to be one for the history books, I can tell you that.
The nice positive though is that at least all of our real estate is up, but our cash flow hurts unless you're able to turn over tenants.
All of my tenants are great. I have not had a single problem through COVID, and the majority of them are going like that. If you look at the percentage of the tenants who are not paying, we had over 58,423 applications for non-payment of rent. they're the ones that are probably going to be taking advantage of it again, so it's going to be where these people know. And every landlord just needs to put it in, through their screening process. Show us your payment arrangement, show that you were willing to pay your rent through COVID when you're now doing your screening, because the evictions prior to COVID are happening. People are on the move looking for new rental properties. Make sure that you put that as your requirement in order to potentially screen your tenants.
Yeah, just even to screen for morals and ethics, something that we all need to do more of in this world. Let's talk about something positive, Kayla. Sorry?
We got to start beating the kids. I tell you that everyone, I have all these memes out there. They're like, look at the world that we live in now. I was like, this is what happens when you tell us that we can't beat our kids. I'm like, oh God. And they got the one too. It's like, I beat my kids now so the police don't have to beat them later. Like, are you kidding me? Like, we got to put them in the right path. And I'm glad to see our high schools now starting to teach different type of life skills and finances to the kids. And that's what's been needed ever since kindergarten. This is what needs to be put out there so that people are better with their money and their decisions in life.
Some tough parenting too. If you ever have time, Kevin Hart's book is very fascinating. The one that he wrote himself. His Kevin Hart, I think everyone knows, the movie actor, the comedian, really, really successful. His brother went to jail because he was a drug dealer, his older brother. So his mom was like, you're not going down that path. I'm going to keep my thumb on you. Right. So he was parented hard. And so one of his life lessons was that movie schedules apparently are hard. Right. But to him, it was easy because he was used to living a very regimented, busy life. So there are good things that came out of aggressive parenting. I don't know what you call it.
My daughter, she's got 2 jobs and, been working a job for 2 jobs in 1 year. And with her spending habits, she got a nice $10,000 saved up herself.
Yeah, awesome. Amazing.
Yeah. And my husband's like, she wants to buy a MacBook for school out of her savings. And my husband's like, how much are you putting of your next check into your savings? Because that will all depend if you get a MacBook for school.
Whoa.
So you got her on the right path because she will work all these hours and she's got herself good friends and she's out of trouble. And that's what you're doing. You're keeping them so busy that they're staying out of trouble.
Yeah, keeping them busy. And good things.
Yeah.
So Kayla, like, again, you have your ear to the ground on real estate. Yeah, it's busy. What do you recommend? So I have a lot of new people who are just starting out in investing. What would you recommend for an investment property to get to a new investor? Like, what's the next type of property you're buying for yourself, for example, or what kind of investment property would you have your oldest kid get into?
Getting into the single family homes and getting them converted into secondary suites. I always encourage that because if you're going to rent somewhere, if you want to live in a house by yourself and then have that rental, but when you're first starting out, but even if our tenants, getting them into renting a bigger spot, renting out that room, get your money up there to help offset. And that way the money that you're getting from renting out rooms that you have, you now get yourself into a single family home. You have the funds into converting it into a secondary suite. Now you become the landlord to that unit. As soon as you start getting your cash flow up and you have your down payment again ready to go, now you're going to look into either getting another rental property and stay in that property in itself, or rent out those 2 units in itself, and you go find yourself that single family home or a semi or whatever. That's how we were able to scale by doing it at the age of 18. Getting ourselves a semi. We were renting in an apartment. We sold the semi to buy a 5-plex, and then we left our rental unit to buy a semi. And then we sold the semi to get into a triplex, and we lived in the top half of our triplex for about 7 years. To live in the house that we live in now, staying here for 3 years, and now I'm trying to get myself a 2,600 square foot house. Hopefully, if I can sell the one I live in right now. And you just keep moving. You got to keep moving yourself up. But I like the secondary suite idea. I don't like condos. I know so many people are like, oh, it's good, especially for the new builds or new construction. You might see some money there. But I like the secondary suite situation happening. So I would definitely highly recommend that, or even a triplex for that matter, if you can get that squeezed out of any municipality.
Who do you think is the first municipality that's going to allow the third suite within reason? Like
in my area, probably Kitchener. Cambridge, there's something wrong with them. I'm hoping like we have a by-election coming up now at the end of the month. Well, October 5th. I have my one candidate that I love to pieces, Connie Cody. So I'm hoping that she gets in because she's going to give them a run for their money, really make them see the issues of our community and understanding a lot of our issues come from a housing sector of it. Yeah. But they need to be questioned. They go with the flow. Our council goes with the flow. They like to listen to city staff more, looking at the report and reading that themselves. So we really like to know that she's going to be in and she does her homework. And that's what I like about a counselor is that they do their homework and they actually make a decision based on the research that they've done themselves and not quite rely on city staff to do
it. I don't know if you can talk to the Tri-City, but like, for example, where I live in Burlington, our mayor basically ran on a campaign of anti-development. I'm more anti-development than the current mayor who is extremely anti-development too. Like the mayor himself would go to OMB and fight against developments. Like that was, if you're anti-development, that's leadership, man. How would you say the Tri-Cities are of KWC? Where are they in the spectrum of?
I'm surprised that the councils are not at the developers like Christmas parties for their families. Like that's how I think our cities are. They bend over backwards for our developers because they think that the developers are the only people who provide housing. They're not looking at like the single family, the mom and pop who just want to create a secondary suite. But you'll go ahead and allow, so many pods to be put in the park, and you do that for a developer. You have, these big buildings that are being put on Hespeler Road right by our police station, which they have, some are the market rent and the other ones are affordable rent. There's more development that's coming, but they tell the city council that, here's the proposed project that we have, but there's no affordable units, but we can work something out in lieu of. So if they don't provide affordable housing, I think there's like a cash of in lieu of, because we're not doing. And those are the ones that you tend to get because they look for developers, but they're looking for these big buildings, or they're looking for the big townhouses that are going for like $500,000, $600,000. So this is again where here's one set of investors and here's another set of investors, and it seems like our city just likes to, they gotta either go big or go home. And that's the problem. It's like you still just work with smaller investors and you can probably get more done quickly than just giving away land or waiving development charges in order to get the type of development that they're looking for.
Fascinating stuff. Kayla, we're running out of time, and you've been very generous as you always are. Anything you want to? Anything else you'd like to share? Or tell people how they can support OLW?
Sure that all your listeners. Yeah, you want to support Ontario Landlords Watch. One, join Ontario Landlords Watch members group. Making sure that you mentioned that you heard me on Erwin's podcast, so I can let you into the group quicker. We are wanting you to sign up with Landlord Credit Bureau. Start feeding them your database. It's free to sign up. They do have the premium account. Our members do get a discount of 15% off of the premium account. Again, it's a free account for Ontario Landlords Watch, so there's no worries, but we want to make sure that you are calling your MPP, you're calling the Attorney General, Doug Downey, you're making your call to the Ontario Ombudsman because they are actively investigating the Landlord and Tenant Board, and we still need to keep them on the heels of the Landlord and Tenant Board to make sure that they are addressing the backlog that is still such a huge pain for the investors in Ontario, and making sure that you're telling other landlords about Ontario Landlords Watch as well as Landlord Credit Bureau. We need to feed this giant. This giant could be the person to save us. And like I've said before through the podcast, that This is the game changer. This is the game changers for all landlords and tenants. We just now need to make sure that we support it. And if you have any questions about it, you can contact me on my personal Facebook as well, Kayla Andrade, and then I can give you my emails there as well. OLW.
Oh no, we don't share emails.
Okay.
This podcast is no, it's just like just like your real estate market's grown 20%, my listenership has grown over 60%. So you give out one email, okay, I don't know how many you're gonna get.
I can't even promise I can answer it right now. I can't even promise I can answer it right now anyways.
Exactly. So just give me the websites. What are give us the websites.
Well, it's just the Facebook group is where we are Ontario Landlords Watch members. So you have the public page, which is Ontario Landlords Watch, and then our closed group is Ontario Landlords Watch members.
And where can people find LCB, Landlord Credit Bureau?
Landlordcreditbureau.ca.
And folks, I'll have all this in the show notes in case you're looking, in case you're driving, so you don't have to pull over or touch your phone, nothing like that. Fantastic. Anything else you want to share? Anything else we need to leave off at? You can do all, you know what? All these people say, I don't have time to invest in real estate. Kayla, like you have time to get your house ready by Monday. You just had a third kid. Sorry, excuse me. Did you have another one since, or was it twins? I missed one along the way.
No. Well, we had the 11-pound, 10-ounce baby 7 years ago, and then we got our surprise baby that just happened. And he's walking. He's not dependent on me, so I can actually leave and attend these events if they ever get back up and running, because I love your events. I can't wait. I missed it because you wanted me to be at the one, your big event, and I'm like, I'm 9 months pregnant. I'm not going to be able to make it. Yeah. I would have. If I could have walked, I would have been there, and you know it.
There'll be another, probably next year. Not with the way things are going.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking us about our conference too, and I'm like, nah. Like we when we do it, we make a statement. We bring our elected officials, and I think that this year was supposed to be hopefully in Toronto, where we can get more elected officials to come from all different levels of government. Mm-hmm. So in order to really make that a good conference, we want to make sure that we have our full capacity that we mm-hmm. can allow. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens next year, hopefully.
See what happens next year. And I just want to make the point as well, like the elected officials are in a tough spot because like I was saying with our own mayor who won on a platform of anti-development, the residents had to vote her in, right? Yeah. So that's what the people wanted. So if the people don't want development, how do we ever have more housing?
That's right? Where it is. It's playing politics, and that's what we're doing on our Twitter feed is constantly tagging the elected officials to be like, stop playing politics in the housing, because you're not running housing industry like a business. This is why the housing industry is suffering, because you're not running it like a business. They're not even running their own rental geared to income housing as a business. Mm-hmm. And because of that, there's an unsustainable system, and they can't meet the demand, mm-hmm. the growing demand of people looking for government housing. Mm-hmm. So we need to get proper people in place who have their boots on the ground, who have the knowledge of how to build, how to maintain, how to keep investing, and mm-hmm. how to manage these type of rental units. Because if you look at anyone of our tenants, who is the biggest slumlord, it'd be Toronto Housing. You know, they don't have funds to continue to keep maintaining their own properties. Mm-hmm. So we just need to have proper people in place, and people who have the experience, from years of experience of being in the industry. They need to help the government, and the government should be welcoming them in with open arms to mm-hmm. help deal with the affordable housing crisis, not just look at developers.
Yeah. And the tough part is that, like, for example, our mayor, if they wanted to have affordable housing, create more supply, it'll probably cost them a re-election. So I do feel bad for them, but it's funny because a lot of our media, a lot of our government is quite left leaning. You can argue some of the centrist, but when it comes to housing, they're willing to fight for the residents, the NIMBYs as we call them, not in my backyard. And the NIMBYs are generally, they're already homeowners, and they're generally quite well off. So they're actually protecting the rich.
Well, my question to you is, what type of development are the people trying to stop? Is it the big buildings? Is it like the townhouses? Is it the condos? Like, what are they trying to stop? Or are they trying to stop these secondary suites from being put in?
All of it, right? Because even my own neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
Because even in my own neighborhood, as soon as you have a second suite, you have parking issues, and then people start parking in the street. Now people get annoyed, right? People always have to adjust, right? Because if, like, in your more centralized urban areas, like downtown Cambridge, downtown Waterloo, everyone parks in the street, right? But when you're in the suburbs, no one's allowed to park in the street. We have a 3 or 5 hour parking limit, so people aren't used to that. So people will have to make that transition slowly. We have all this street parking available, right? But people aren't used to it. So that's why everything is fought, right? Any level of intensification is fought.
It's sad that we can't promise them, like, hey guys, with developments and more units, we have more property taxes, more money to kind of go so we can lower your property taxes. It's something where, no, it's always gone up, no matter how many they build. Yeah. No discount.
I don't know. I don't know if people can put those things together. Like my own municipality, they built a performing arts center, which is bleeding money. Why don't you increase the housing so we have more customers? No, we don't want that either. Never mind. I'd be the worst politician. I would never get elected.
I get so many posts and messages, Kayla for NPDP. I'm like, do you want me to be silenced? Like, seriously, no, you don't want me to be anywhere. I'd probably get like thrown out from the PC caucus first day on the job.
Or you could be so big like Trump, because like nobody liked Trump, but because he won, everyone had to follow him.
I can't build my empire. Like, it's crazy right now to try to find a good property that you're cash flowing so well on, right? Like, that's why you got to build them from the inside. Keep picking up these little single family homes, keep putting some work into them and getting them, putting an extra couple of zeros on there in the value of the house in itself. But you just need to make sure you're working with a municipality that appreciates you, and that's going to make it a lot easier for you to develop. And even with parking and the type of need that people have, there's a lot of people that don't have cars, so even allowing a secondary suite doesn't mean that you're going to put someone in there with a car. A car would be nice, but if you are close to your transit, let them use the transit. We're spending thousands of millions of dollars on this transit that our buses are empty. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, no one's on the bus. So again, they think
that you
can work. There's no one on the bus before COVID. I think there's more people on the bus because.
Okay, that's not good.
No, not this area. So we got to kind of put that into aspect that there is a population of people with no cars, and you still need to provide something for them, and that's where we can come in, get these secondary suites on the go. Just don't prevent us from doing it just because of one simple parking. There's actually a building that is doing a building and they don't have any parking. They're actually doing bicycles. I'm like, that's gonna be great.
Where is that? What's it called? Do you know the name of it?
Oh, I gotta get the name of the gelato for it. I believe it's in Kitchener.
Fascinating.
They had no parking. It's like, okay, good luck renting that. It's not really on a transit hub, but they are really banking on the fact of the GO system, and no one wants to do that. You can get there so much quicker when you have your own car, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But we do know there are changes. They're going to happen slowly, and we just have to really get ourselves very involved on a municipal level to help the development, because sometimes the province is saying, I want development, and the municipality say something totally different, because Mississauga is not very fond of secondary suites as well. So
yeah. Send me the name of that condo when the bicycle condo when you get a chance.
Yeah, I'm writing it down right now with the bike.
Because the funny thing with a lot of condos is you're not allowed to bring your bike in the elevator. I wonder if they're one of those.
Yeah. Park your car out here, but again, they have like the emergency visitors area, but again, we're thinking who's going to want to have that much money spent on their rent and doing a parking spot. So they're trying everything right now, and that's the one thing that we're watching closely as the government comes out with their solutions, what they think are the solutions to address the housing crisis in Ontario. It's almost laughable.
Right.
But when Doug Ford comes out with the rent increase ban or the freeze, I curse on that man because my phone goes crazy. The messages, the emails. That's why I was like, when I was getting my email, I'm like, I might not be able to respond back, because as soon as the rent freeze came out, that was it. It was game over for me. I'm like, I'll get back to you in a week now, because I gotta get all this stuff, respond back to these messages. But it's entertaining. It's entertaining to see how we are getting heard. Little bits of it. A lot of people may think it's not the full of what we want, but there is pieces that we should be proud of through our advocacy, and we just got to keep on going.
Well, in Ontario, it's between Ford Nation and NDP, so I'll just leave it there.
I know. I have this one girl, she's like, you're the one who voted him in. You're the one campaigning for him. I'm like, he still had good business plans. He's just not being guided to deal with the housing crisis. I'm like, if I could put my resume in there, I would, but I don't know how to get to that. But I hope I was entertaining for you today.
It's entertaining to me because I'm a real estate geek, so it doesn't take much to make me happy. Hopefully the listener appreciates and appreciates all your effort. 4 kids, 2 new businesses, middle of moving houses. Wow.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear more about Landlord Credit Bureau, because the more people that get on board with these things, because I didn't know anything like this existed, where it was actually quite easy to affect the tenant's credit and related to tenancy. So very cool stuff. Thank you for sharing.
With the founder being a retired RCMP officer and the CEO being a lawyer, they would be, and Granton himself and his experience in knowing the system and what's to come, those 3 would be a dynamite for your listeners to listen to. We're going to have them on for an update on September 25th on our Facebook live stream. But to have, I would love for them to be introduced, to be introduced to them. So
yeah, I'll need to have them come into the office. And the live stream is available on the Ontario Landlord Watch members Facebook group.
Yeah, Facebook group on my personal page, and then we go live from YouTube as well.
Wow, I'm getting high tech.
I know, I didn't know, because Facebook is so restricting lately. I feel that they're restricting the community standards, and when they see me, what I do and how I connect to the people who I've met throughout the years and giving them my call to action of what I need them to do, I don't know how much they're seeing. And you can't send everybody a private message, because then they tell you you're sending too many. I'm like, but they're my friends. They expect to hear from me. So this is why I do have to spread out. I do have to get my updates on different type of social media channels in order to give people, the call to action, because that will depend on how fast we can really scale our advocacy efforts.
Can you email me your list of call to action, and then I can include it on the show notes for this episode as well?
Of course, I can send you I'll send you our report, so that if you do, with us telling our listeners to go ahead and contact your MPP and the Attorney General and the Landlord and Tenant Board, I'm going to have the document of our solutions that we've put together in order for them to kind of go off of, so that if everyone's hearing all these solutions, then they're like, hey, a lot of people are saying this is a good solution. Let's try it out. Let's put it on a pilot program.
And I have a lot of listeners. Fantastic. All right, Kayla, it's 5:00 on a Friday. I'm sure you have better things to do, like prepare your house, talk to your kid. You're what, 4 kids now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go paint some trim now, spray, do a spruce up on the. There's so many fingerprints on this house. I might need a whole new paint job.
Well, good luck. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks again for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kayla.
Talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye.